Hey there. So today I'm going to give another update on the screwworm fly that's causing havoc on beef prices. Where's the beef? Quite literally, we have a low inventory of beef. We have a fly problem down in Mexico that's causing an impact on beef prices. So with that, let's jump in. This is not financial advice. All right, I'll give you 2 seconds to guess what this is. This is your cattle prices and the increase since the beginning of the year. We're at a 26% increase in beef prices. No wonder steak is getting expensive at the grocery store. And here's why. One of the reasons is cattle's at a 73-year low. This is going back about 45 years or so. Cattle was running about 120 million a head in the United States at about that time. Today we're at about 87 million. So we are importing beef from other countries. Think Brazil, Mexico, a couple other countries, Australia. We do import to help augment our cattle inventory, but we have a low supply. We did talk about this before, the fly. This is the real problem. Tariffs are part of the problem, but really it's the fly that's the problem. So back in the 60s, they eradicated this fly from the US using a technique called the sterile insect technique. And what they did is they created a bunch of sterile male flies. They went and neutered a bunch of flies, and then they put them in the general population, made of the females. They didn't have maggots, and they eventually died. And we were able to push them all the way south of the Mexico border and even into south of the Panama Canal. And that was the goal, kind of keep them down there. The problem is over the last several years, they've been creeping up north of the Panama Canal and into southern Mexico, which has caused us to have to close our borders from importing Mexican beef. Here are the cases. You can see we have about 50,000 cases over the last, I think it was 3 years. This is reported 50,000 cases moving up into Central America, and now there's cases reported in southern Mexico. So kind of going back to the beef price, and then we'll jump back into a few more things. Back in the 80s, beef prices were around $2 a pound. This right here is just inflation, natural inflation. This here is the inventory problem. So we have supply dropping. So that's going to cause beef prices to go up naturally. Well, now here we are at $8.15 a pound. That's kind of expensive. This kink right here is definitely related to the fly. So we have tariffs, we have flies, and this was last year. So it may even be higher than that. Here's what you're seeing at the store. Ground beef. Remember back in the day when it used to be like 59 cents a pound? Quite a while ago. I'm dating myself. But, ground beef is now running north of 6. Ribeyes, 12 to 15. Like New York strips, like $20 a pound. So it's getting expensive, and I don't see any relief anytime soon. I'll jump into that. We import about 1 billion pounds of beef from Mexico to help augment our inventory. That's on an annual basis. What's happening is we're impacting because of the borders being closed. Brooke Rollins closed the borders back on July 9th, and we are not importing anything at all. This is causing about a $20 to $30 million impact on Mexican farmers. They're not importing. What ends up happening is because it's so expensive, it's summertime right now down in Mexico, and it's so expensive to keep these cattle, so the Mexican farmers are selling it locally in different places, and they're taking a huge loss on their cattle. So they're selling about like 65% what they can get to the U.S. And I can guarantee you this, they would love to sell it in the U.S. at $2.40 a pound, but they can't. Well, rather than keeping these cattle starving, they're selling them off much cheaper. So they're definitely having a huge impact there. There's also vet expenses and all that because of this fly problem. So they're definitely getting a pretty big hit. There is a one loss of human life on this. Pretty sad. One person's died so far from this maggot. And this maggot, the problem with the maggot, I didn't talk about this earlier, is this fly doesn't lay eggs on dead flesh. It lays maggots in sores at a tune of about 300 to 500 per sore. Well, then these maggots, even if you're alive, the maggot will basically eat you alive and will kill you. So it can affect humans. It will definitely impact livestock and wildlife. So this is a very big deal. The impact on the U.S. is, the USDA estimates about a $1.9 billion impact just on Texas alone if this thing were to get up into Texas. This is a big deal. So Governor Abbott's at the forefront of this, along with USDA Secretary Brooke Rollins. Abbott has recognized that there's about an $867 billion economic impact if this thing were to have a major outbreak. and about 2 million jobs that would be affected in the ag sector within Texas. So Brooke Rollins is treating this, and the administration is treating this as actually a national security threat. So they're throwing more money at this. One of the things before I get into this slide, they're throwing about another $100 million for innovations to adapt even beyond what the sterile fly technique, what they already know. So new traps, new innovations, whatever it takes to eradicate this fly. They're also building another facility down in Edinburg, Texas, near the other facility that they had planned on building. They're spending $21 million down in southern Mexico to renovate a facility that's been turned off. And altogether, that's going to produce about 300 million flies a week. That additional facility down in southern Texas, 300 million flies a week. The facility down that they're renovating, the $21 million down in southern Mexico, that's another 100 million flies. And then the current facility, which is only one, that's 100 million. So all in, they're estimating that'll get to about 500 to 600 million flies a week. And that is what the estimates are to keep this fly at bay. We've got a long road ahead of us. It's going to take a little bit of time to get all this stood up. One facility is being done by spring, even at the first of the year, somewhere along in there. And then the other ones, I don't have a date. So if any of my friends in Texas want to drive down to Edinburg and see if they can take pictures, I'd love to see the pictures of the facility because I think there's going to be an opportunity economically to potentially short this one. And we start releasing flies from airplanes. And that is a fact. Other things that the U.S. is doing is they're creating this thing called, well, it's not, they're not creating it already exists. They're called tick riders. And these are guys who ride on horseback. They're cowboys that ride on horseback along the border. And they're looking for ticks to prevent the spread of cattle fever, which could be devastating to livestock. They're going to train them how to look for this fly. That sounds like a pretty cool job, to be able to sit on a horseback and look for flies and ticks. I'd take that. Sounds pretty fun. But anyways, they're training them and to start looking for this fly. They're adding canine units, so they're going to be training dogs to sniff for these flies and these maggots. And then they're also working with the Border Patrol and some other agencies. USDA is working with some other agencies to really put this problem out. What this tells me is if you're spending that kind of money, sending 21 million to Mexico, 100 million for another facility and innovations, USDA is expecting this to last for a little bit. You wouldn't spend that kind of money if you thought it was a week or two problem. So bottom line is, I don't think this is going away anytime soon. You know, you're going to have a supply shock on beef. That's what's happening with beef prices. It just, every day I look, it just keeps on going up. Analysts are estimating that this is probably going to last through 2026, maybe even into 2027. So here we are, $2.40 a pound now for live cattle. I don't expect it to go down anytime soon. I am out. I was shorting this and straddling it and all kinds of things, and I did lose on this one. Kind of sucked because wasn't expecting it to go up like this, and it just keeps on going up. Well, with them spending that kind of money, I just don't see it coming down. I am watching the news to see when these facilities are going to be complete. There's not really a whole lot out there. Farmers probably aren't reporting the cases in Mexico because they're afraid that if they do, it'll keep the borders closed longer. If the borders do open, you know that this price is going to come down because we'll be importing a lot more beef. How much beef? I don't know. Are we going to go back to the billion pounds before as these farmers are selling off? I don't know what that looks like. So I'm going to stay away from this one for a little while. I'll keep watching it though, because once borders open and once this fly facility is produced, this will be a short opportunity. I promise. You will see the prices. Will it go back down to $2 a pound? I don't know, but it could probably move 20 or 30 cents. I'm sure of it. But from where? Who knows? Does it go up to $2.50 a pound and then drop? Does it go to $3 a pound? I hope not, because steak will get really expensive. And that's another thing. I'm not sure what the elasticity is with pork. People will start moving over to pork or chicken. And typically that spread, I followed this for years, is 40 to, call it 60 to 80 cents between what the cattle prices are and what pork prices are. We're at $1.55 now. So we're a long ways apart. But does it have to go to $2 a pound more before people switch over to pork? It's going to be an interesting economic study because I don't know what the what the elasticity is on that. At what point does cattle prices cause pork prices to rise? There's a glut with pork. They're producing more pigs per litter and they're producing more meat. There's also a glut there. Pigs farmers need about 90 cents a pound. It's running about 84 cents a pound. So it's a little bit light there because of this glut. So you got a glut on one side, a huge shortage on the other. So what price point do they start sticking together? Well, no, I'm going to watch it. I'll keep an eye on this. We'll report on it every so often. Hope you enjoyed this. Let me know if you like these videos. Please send me a note in the comments or drop me an email, maybe even subscribe if you like this video. But with that, happy trading. Have a good one.